WrestleMania weekend's biggest party is coming to Bourbon Street. Don't miss an all-inclusive, all-night party Friday, April 6th. Hosted by Kevin Nash and over 20 other wrestling stars. Enjoy unlimited drinks all night long at the Bourbon Cowboy on Bourbon Street. Throw beads from the balcony. Drink and party with your favorite wrestling stars. Hurry, limited quantities available. Purchase tickets now at PWRshow.com. That's PWRshow.com.
And welcome back to the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime Live. We're live here on Wednesday, our special Survivor Series edition. And it's time now for Be the Booker, which means, of course, we're joined by the one and only David Hero and Al Snow. Well, it would be the two and onlys, David Hero and Al Snow. David, how the heck are you here on a Wednesday?
I'm fantastic, man. How are you?
I am tremendous. You being fantastic is a matter of opinion, though, and that's one I do not share. However, I am more importantly interested in finding out how our very special guest, Al Snow, is doing here this week.
Well, and who wouldn't be interested in how I'm doing? And how I'm doing is, much like yourself, Damien, absolutely just tremendous.
There it is. Fantastic. Hey, Al, you were in Chile last week, correct?
I was in Santiago in Chile, yes.
How was that?
And it's an absolutely beautiful country, and the people are wonderful. The wrestling fans there are incredible, very passionate, very, very emotional and very supportive of wrestling, and had an awesome time.
Well, you know, Al, I'm not one to normally talk about this kind of thing, especially on a wrestling show, but what did the Chileans have to say, if anything, about our current political situation here in the United States? I'm told we're a laughingstock around the world. Is that true?
But not really. No, not a bit around the world recently, and really not too many people bring up our political situation because they have more concerns. Surprisingly, been a lot of different places, and people would be shocked to find out that our political situation comes up here as much as it does everywhere else, which is not often. People have greater concerns, much like, hey, how am I going to pay my rent, and how am I going to, buy my groceries and put gas in my car? And we're more concerned about that than what the president's doing.
Fair enough. That's actually good to hear, I would say, as David's candidate has not completely destroyed our reputation around the world. And I'm not talking about Roy. I'm not talking about Roy Moore.
Whoa! Hey.
But let's talk about the Survivor Series. It's this Sunday. We've talked about a couple of matchups already here on the program, but wanted to save the best for the middle, I guess, as we still have more of this program after Be the Booker here. But first, I wanted to get your guys' opinion.
The rest after the middle isn't going to really that matter. You've topped out right now. Let's go.
Well, you're supposed to peak in the center, right? This is the climax.
Right. Absolutely. That way the rest is just wasted time and friction.
Damien, where else would you climax if it's not the center?
Well, generally at the end.
Okay. Just making sure.
No, that depends on the end.
Depends on the number of participants as well. Let's talk about now, as we know, it's champion versus champion at Survivor Series, which is, I think, a unique concept. However, I wanted to get both of your opinion on that concept because in each of these matchups, the stakes may be high, but if it's champion versus champion with neither championship on the line, what's the buy-in, or I guess as you guys would generally say, where's the heat in these matchups? Because at the end of Survivor Series, what will have been accomplished, because the champions will remain the same. Nobody will have won a prize, if you will, after this series of matchups. Al, what's your perspective on it being champion versus champion in just about every match here at the Survivor Series? Is that a good call, bad call?
I agree 100%. Unless they're using this to work towards or create a situation where they have the exact same thing, say in WrestleMania, where champion versus champion and the titles are at stake. I don't see, I can understand where it's champion versus champion, which is the best of Raw versus the best of SmackDown. But I would think that other than just bragging rights, that they really should have at stake the actual titles. They should, mix things up. where a team or a wrestler from SmackDown can win a Raw title, and then it now requires one of the wrestlers from Raw to go to SmackDown and try to chase that title to get it back to regain their status that they had at one time. That could create so many more interesting situations and stories and motivations for the characters. I really don't know where the heat's at if there's nothing at stake.
And in that scenario, Alec, it also requires a lot of commitment from the company, right? Because that's not a 1 week, 2 week, even 1 month, 2 month play. Chasing back after the titles, trying to get back your brand's elite, if you will. But at the same time, at this time of year, from Survivor Series to the Rumble to WrestleMania, doesn't that make a lot more sense to have those titles actually on the line and mean something?
Yeah, I would think so, and there should be that commitment to some degree. I mean, you're always going to leave things open to where you can adjust the course over the run, but yeah, you should have that commitment that, and take that risk of putting those things on the line so that you can generate that kind of heat and that kind of interest in the stories that would be born out of this. Otherwise it's kind of a, I hate to say it, but it's a little bit of a dead play, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing. You win the match, and you win bragging rights, but the real point of having a title is to create a gimmick, that adds gravity to the consequence of the win or loss to make it greater. And without that being at stake, then there's no gravity to the consequence.
Do you think that this would be a better play at WrestleMania? You mentioned WrestleMania earlier. Do you think that this champion versus champion gimmick, if you will, would be something that is more fitting towards the biggest show of the year if they are not going to use this as a stepping stone to said show?
Well, it could be, yes. But, doing it now allows you to create characters that drive the interest, the heat for WrestleMania, to where now the stakes, the gravity of either getting that title back or retaining that title at WrestleMania grow exponentially, because you've had all this time to build up the storyline of how important it is to either get or retain that title from Survivor Series on.
Makes sense. Let's move on to the matchups, though, and thank you for that insight, Al. But let's move on to the matchups. And first, before we get your booking strategy, if you will, David Hero, on this matchup, I want to get your opinion, Al, on The Miz so far, because it is Miz versus Baron Corbin. Miz, the Intercontinental Champion over on Raw. Baron Corbin, the United States Champion over on SmackDown. There's been a lot of talk about The Miz, and I don't think anyone can argue that in the last few months, especially after his pairing with Maurice, The Miz has been on a different level. And I have been one to say that he is probably the top heel in the company, and he is doing so tremendously. But I wanted to get your thoughts, Al, first on The Miz and his current positioning, if you will, in the company as one of those top heels.
Well, for me, Miz being positioned as one of those top heels is no surprise to me. Miz was always a driven, passionate professional wrestler from when I first met him on Tough Enough 4, and was always very, very talented. It doesn't shock me at all that he's where he's at. He's finally found his voice, his persona, his personality. He always had it, but he's really got it dialed in now to where it clicks and people can connect immediately with who he is, what he's about, what he stands for, or what he'll do to win, what he'll do not to lose. You can describe Miz to your friends and family in a sentence or less. And that, as I've always said, is the essential play to be successful in professional wrestling. And I think it's been a long time coming for Miz, not from the standpoint of like WWE has been holding him back or anything, but just that he's finally really got himself in a place to where WWE can capitalize with him.
All right, with that, then, David Hero, let's hear your thoughts. This matchup, UC Championship the United States Champion versus the Intercontinental Champion, Miz versus Baron Corbin at Survivor Series. How would you book it?
You see two different styles of bad guys. You got the Miz, who's more of a finesse heel, a cowardly heel. Then you got Baron Corbin, who's going to just punch you right in the face. And it's going to be – I kind of feel that the crowd's going to get behind the Miz more than Corbin, just because for some reason – I mean, Corbin has that Jay Bradley kind of heat where you look at him and you just hate him because of how he looks. But you know, I think it's going to be entertaining. I think that Baron Corbin's going to get a lot of his big power moves in. The Miz is going to bob and weave and try to avoid confrontation the entire match. And I fully expect the Miz, along with the Miz-tourage, to get the upper hand on Baron Corbin in the end.
All right, David Hero going with the Miz in that matchup. I can't argue that fact. Next matchup, though, would be a matchup where champions are not on the line. Championships, rather, are not on the line because it was one half of this team that caused the one half of the other team, or a portion of the other team, to lose those championships recently on WWE Raw. And that is the Shield versus the New Day. Now, this is Raw versus SmackDown as well. It actually will indeed be the first time we've seen the Shield in its entirety back together on pay-per-view. We saw it this past Monday night on Raw, but back together on pay-per-view against the New Day. This one perplexes me a little bit because they're two very, very popular groups. Al Snow, is this a good pairing, or is this a good matchup between these two three-man teams, the New Day and the Shield, two big teams going into Survivor Series on Sunday?
I think it's an interesting one. I don't know if it's a good one per se. Time will tell. I believe that going out of this, that New Day, they'll use New Day to elevate the Shield even further. They've got too many, they've got too much invested in, his name just went right out of my head.
Roman Reigns?
Roman Reigns, they have too much invested in Roman Reigns. And I just don't see them utilizing this match to elevate New Day with a win over the Shield.
Yeah.
As much as I do them using this match to elevate the Shield and, again, to spotlight Roman Reigns in it.
Interesting. Now, here's a question to that point. Clearly, the long-term plan is for the New Day to stay together versus the Shield, if you had to look at them side by side, because one has to imagine by the time Royal Rumble or WrestleMania comes around, the Shield will no longer be a faction, if you will. So, given that, I find it interesting that they feel the need to elevate the Shield more so than the New Day, because I think the Shield's already there, but your point of protecting Roman Reigns makes a lot more sense when you dissect it that way. Who will be? And
I think that it's not. I don't think that this, would hurt New Day in any way.
Mm-hmm.
Where if it were the Shield who were to take the fall, to go under, it's not going to help them being beaten by New Day. Where if the Shield beats New Day, it's not going to hurt New Day. They're still going to be entertaining. They're still going to be fun. People are still going to want to watch them. As opposed to Shield losing and it taking them a step back.
So, down the road, who do you think is the catalyst for the dismantling or the second breakup of the Shield? Last time it was Seth Rollins, who didn't sell out but bought in. This time, do you think do they break off is it Roman Reigns that somehow or another causes the group to disband, or is it this time Dean Ambrose perhaps, or maybe even Rollins again?
That's tough because it depends on how they want to position Roman Reigns leading into WrestleMania. And, I think some of that will be indicated by just exactly who his opponent will be.
Yeah.
Do they, regardless, I know the popular conception now is that there are heels and baby faces. Because, of course, when you're telling a story, there isn't an antagonist or a protagonist. Those don't exist anymore. They just, you just have characters. Nobody is cheered and nobody's booed. They just, everybody just gets a reaction now. They just make noise. So, but that aside, let's just say that somebody lost their mind and decided that they did want to actually have an antagonist and a protagonist going into that story. Well, a lot will depend on, who they've picked as to how they position Roman Reigns. And if they're, and we'll reveal why exactly they've brought the Shield back together again after they've done such a great job with Roman Reigns as a singles, elevating him and putting him in such a spot, in a position. And then all of a sudden, no sooner than they did, they've put him right back in a group.
Right.
So I'm not really following the motivation other than, if it's going to be over the next couple of months, one of those people being used to, again, elevate and cement Roman Reigns as a, not a babyface, not a heel, because those don't exist, and not an antagonist or a protagonist, but I guess a really popular character going into WrestleMania.
All right, let's get to the matchup itself. David Hero, how would you book it? The Shield versus the New Day.
Well, I think it'll be competitive, but when you have the Shield, you have 3 former world champions. You've had all 3 of them have worked against Brock Lesnar and have had competitive matches. They pretty much all have main evented and headlined pay-per-views in the last year. Then you have New Day, who's a comedy act. Yeah, they're fantastic, and the crowd gets behind them, but it's a one-sided match. And New Day will be competitive, but at the end, there's no way the Shield does not beat New Day at Survivor Series.
I got to challenge you on that, though, David, because you say that, and there's no doubt, the New Day is indeed a comedy act. But if you go back to their matchup at, whether it be Hell in a Cell or TLC, I forget which pay-per-view it was, but that tag match they had, it was Hell in a Cell because it was in a Hell in a Cell match, against the Usos, there was no comedy within the confines of that bell-to-bell action.
Right, but they were also being forced in a cage. It's different.
So they couldn't have shenanigans.
I'm telling you right now, Big E is tiny next to Roman Reigns. Okay?
What? He's shorter.
Dean Ambrose is a former world champion. Xavier Woods plays with the trombone. Okay? And then you have Kofi, who's been there for quite a while. He's had a good run, but the highest he's been has been the Intercontinental Champion. Seth Rollins, he beat Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. So, talent-wise, it's a no contest.
All right, I'll let you have that, folks. Next matchup we're going to talk about is the 5-on-5 traditional Survivor Series matchup. And before we get to the men's match here, of course, Team Angle versus Team Shane O'Mac, Team Raw versus Team SmackDown. Al, what is it like to be in one of these Survivor Series 5-on-5 elimination matchups? Firstly, it's got to be terribly difficult to book. And secondly, it's got to be terribly difficult to participate in because there's so much going on.
Well, they're definitely a challenge. You really have to understand where the spotlights are and when they're there so that you can either step up into that spotlight when you need to or step out and not take the focus off of what should be happening and put it on yourself when it shouldn't be there. That makes it difficult because, as wrestlers, we're programmed. We are, all about making sure that spotlight is on us at all times. And, when you know that the spotlight's supposed to be on you and you're doing everything you can to keep it on you, and sometimes you've got 1 or 2 or 3 of the other 5, of your team over there doing stuff to get the spotlight on themselves, it can be kind of frustrating. So,
you were a part of the 1998 Survivor Series going up against Mankind, who would ultimately go on to win the championship that night. That was in St. Louis. It was the Deadly Game. Give us some anecdotes about that night, anything that pops into your head, because that, I think, is one of the greatest Survivor Series of all time. You had the whole, Shane McMahon screwing over Stone Cold Steve Austin. The McMahons really, going. That's when Rock went corporate, and Mankind was calling Vince McMahon Dad, and it was just a well-written, top-to-bottom show, the tournament-style show. What pops out at you? What memories do you have of that 1998 edition of the Survivor Series?
I think one of the biggest things was that every single guy on the show meant something to some degree, and they were significant to the audience. And I think
including Gilbert,
including Gilbert, he people laughed, but he did, and everyone was viewed as a star, and everyone had a character. Everyone had a discernible, understandable, relatable character. That and then in that sense, that was what made each and every one of them mean so much, and play such an important factor in the show from beginning to end. It's tough to do a show like that if you just have a roster full of wrestlers.
Yeah.
All the matches don't carry the same significance. They don't carry the same weight. They don't carry the same gravity, or for the audience to really cheer on or hope that a particular guy is going to win, or not know. That was also, there was a lot of heat on that pay-per-view because you quite honestly, you really didn't know if somebody would get upset, get an upset and suddenly get a win and then be catapulted further up the ladder,
right.
Much like what Mankind did, by making his way up to win the title that night.
I got to say on that show, there are three things that really stand out for me. It was the introduction of Gilbert, because I think it was Patterson and Briscoe reading off of cue cards, and McMahon as well, just putting him over like a mofo, and then it's frickin' Gilbert that comes out. Then it was the 1-2 Shane McMahon Stone Cold pinfall on Mankind, where he didn't count the 3, and everyone was so shocked because Shane hadn't aligned himself with Dad at that time. And then at the end, when Mick Foley said to Vince, "Dad, I don't get it," and Vince said, "You don't get it, Mick? Well, get this." And they started bludgeoning him with the steel chair. Just the story. And again, that was the beginning, the middle, and the end of the show right there. And over the course of that night, it was just, and I was there live, it was just such a brilliantly executed pay-per-view event that it really, really stays high in my memory.
Well, and again, every one of those people you just said had a character. Briscoe and Patterson had a character, and they played a role, a part in, that whole corporate thing with McMahon. And you understood who they were and where they were at and what they would do and what they wouldn't do for Vince McMahon. I mean, it was... and you could relate. You knew people that were just exactly like that. Yeah. And you got it. You understood it. And that's why it works so well. And it's a shame that everybody relates and goes back to it was such a great time in wrestling. And it was. But the key to it, I think that everybody misses is that it was really a very, very character-driven era,
right?
In WWE history.
It didn't matter how good or bad the guys were; it mattered how great the characters were.
Correct, and then that's been the case with wrestling, throughout history. It had always, go back and look through the annals of professional wrestling and. Some of the greatest draws were, they were great characters. Now, and that a case in point, Hulk Hogan is actually a really good wrestler, because he was broken in by Hiro Matsuda. Hiro Matsuda was a noted hooker, a catch wrestler.
He was a what?
You don't think... Hooker, yeah, you know what those things are. They'll catch you, they'll hook you, and they'll make you submit. Eventually, all of them make you submit. So, Matsuda broke Hulk Hogan's ankle the first day he came to train, and then Hogan came back. You don't think a guy like Hiro Matsuda was going to teach Hulk Hogan how to wrestle? But the reason Hulk Hogan didn't wrestle. Hulk Hogan be Hulk Hogan, not to be Billy Robinson or Vern Gagne or Mick Bocklin. They paid to see Hulk Hogan be Hulk Hogan, and that's what worked.
Yep.
And you're not going to see Hulk Hogan out there, doing switches and reversals and takedowns, because people are going to go, what the hell is this? And they're not going to buy it. They're not going to buy it. Same with Steve Austin. Steve Austin's an accomplished wrestler. But, you know, you're not going to pay to see Steve Austin just sit there and, you know, exchange holds with a guy. You're going to pay to see him be a beer-drinking, ass-kicking redneck. That's it.
Well, thanks for taking that look back at Survivor Series 98 and framing up the match, if you will, the traditional 5-on-5 Survivor Series matchups. It may no longer be the Thanksgiving night tradition, but it is the Thanksgiving week tradition. And David Hero, let's talk about the matchup. Team Raw versus Team SmackDown. Team Raw has been rather solid, at least up until this past Monday night, where Kurt Angle, Braun Strowman, Samoa Joe, and Finn Balor were to be joined by Jason Jordan. I think that was a great story, the way they told it on Monday night, by the way, as Jordan was then replaced by a shocking replacement in Triple H. Triple H rounding out the fifth man on the five-man team for Team Raw, and they will be going up against the team of Shane McMahon, Bobby Roode, Randy Orton, Shinsuke Nakamura, and John Cena. As difficult as it may be, David Hero, how would you book this matchup?
Well, what's interesting is this is a way for Triple H to finally play with all of his kids, is what it really comes down to, because now he gets Bobby Roode, Shinsuke Nakamura, Samoa Joe, Finn Balor, Braun Strowman, all the young up-and-comers that, you know, are supposed to be the next ones to take the company to the next level, and he now gets to be in the ring with all of them. You got to wonder if he is going to do good business and help elevate them, or show them that he's still the boss and beat them down. But I mean, you have a lot of dream matchups for a lot of different things. I mean, you have John Cena and Braun Strowman. You have Randy Orton and Braun Strowman. You have Finn Balor and John Cena. You know, I mean, you have Shinsuke Nakamura and well, he's really not a dream matchup for anybody, I guess. But I mean, hey, did you notice, Al, when Braun Strowman came down to the ring, the first guy to attack Braun Strowman was Shinsuke Nakamura? And it kind of gave me flashbacks to the old Godzilla movies where the Japanese would attack Godzilla, you know?
Come on. Really?
It's just like, are you kidding me? I think, okay. But you know what? I think this is Braun Strowman's coming out party. I think Braun Strowman is the guy that is going to win the Survivor Series. I mean, nothing has killed him yet. So how can he really lose to everyone else who's already beaten? So, and I really believe that Braun Strowman will be the sole survivor, probably with Triple H, and it'll be Team Raw that goes over on Team SmackDown.
That could be interesting. Do you see anything coming out of this? You know, if you look at any of the participants against one another, you talk about, obviously, Braun Strowman and Triple H, but what about the others? Do we see something more develop for Bobby Roode or a Samoa Joe or even a Finn Balor out of this matchup?
Well, what's cool is, you know, we're going to see Bobby Roode and Samoa Joe again. I mean, those guys have had matches in NXT and in TNA. You know, Finn Balor now gets to be in the ring with Randy Orton and John Cena. I mean, so there's a lot of possibilities that they can set up things going forward towards WrestleMania, even though that's still 6 months out. But it's a nice way of planting seeds, because let's not forget, you know, Raw doesn't have another pay-per-view of their own, I believe, until February.
That's a good point.
So, you know, so they need to start laying groundwork for WrestleMania and the Royal Rumble. And, you know, right now they have their 10 top guys. With the exception of the Shield not being in this main event match, everyone else that they want to be main event players is in this Survivor Series match.
That's a good point. Very well done, David Harrell. And, of course, you know, we talk about going into February, the next Raw show. We've got the Royal Rumble, of course, WrestleMania. We also know that this week WrestleMania tickets go on sale at the Superdome for the 34th annual event, returning to the Superdome only 4 years after it was last there. That is not a problem in this man's eyes, because also returning to New Orleans on Friday night, April 6th, will be Shenanigans on Bourbon Street. Al, have you heard the details of this yet?
Oh, I haven't heard all the details, because, of course, some of them legally can't be released. But I have heard certain details, and the certain details I have heard have me very excited for an aptly named party, Shenanigans, especially with the two of you.
And here's the thing. You've been there for the last several years, Al. You've seen these shenanigans that occur. We have never been, on Bourbon Street. And I want to be clear, crystal clear here. There is not another official wrestling event occurring on Bourbon Street during WrestleMania weekend than...
Not that it would matter anyways, because let me tell you something. If you want to go to the event, the WrestleMania event, whether it was on Bourbon Street or on the top of a tower, then you need to go to the shenanigans party, because trust me, there are things that we just cannot discuss on the air that could lead to probably warrants for people to watch. But they were incredibly interesting and entertaining situations that would have led to those warrants. So
absolutely. It's Friday, April 6th, folks. You're going to be able to throw beads from our own private balcony on Bourbon Street. It is a one-of-a-kind experience, and tickets are on sale now. So complete your WrestleMania weekend experience by heading to PWRshow.com, PWRshow.com to get your tickets for shenanigans. We're running a sale right now through Black Friday. That's next Friday, through Black Friday only.
Isn't that your birthday?
Whoa. My birthday's not on Black Friday. My birthday's the 26th. It's Sunday.
Oh, what's the same weekend?
Uh-huh. Is your birthday on Cyber Monday, Dave?
Yes, actually it is.
Well, I got to tell everybody out there too. What happens at shenanigans stays at shenanigans. So
very, very true. We're running a sale through Black Friday. You can get up to 20% off your tickets right now. That sale ends on Black Friday. The tickets you buy, all of them, include all of your drinks all night long. You walk in the door, you are drinking on an unlimited basis all night long. This is dangerous.
I still don't remember San Jose.
I do.
Oh, boy.
Shenanigans hosted by Kevin Nash, folks. That's Friday, April 6th. Complete your WrestleMania weekend now. You've already got your tickets to WrestleMania. Head on over to PWRshow.com to get those tickets right now. Folks, one last matchup to talk about here and be the booker with Al and Dave, and that is what could only be called the main event. It is Universal Champion versus the WWE World Heavyweight Champion. Brock Lesnar versus AJ Styles. AJ Styles, who defeated Jinder Mahal last Tuesday on SmackDown to become the new champion, and now the man to face Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series. Before we get to your booking of this matchup, Dave, Al, your thoughts on Jinder's long title reign coming to an end at the hands of AJ Styles just 2 weeks prior to the marquee matchup at Survivor Series. AJ now the champion, Jinder Mahal not even on the card.
I think it's brilliant. I think that they did such a great job of elevating and making Jinder Mahal, and then utilizing that by beating him with AJ Styles, once again elevating AJ Styles even further to really make him mean something going into this match with Brock Lesnar. Not that he wouldn't be meaningless without it, but gosh, it makes him so much more of a real superstar facing Brock Lesnar, which when Brock Lesnar beats him is going to only elevate Brock Lesnar that much further.
All right, well, let's get to the matchup. David Hero, this one's going to be a good match, just for all the reasons we've already heard from both Paul Heyman, AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan, which I love what he did on Tuesday, by the way, being AJ's advocate on SmackDown. But how would you book this matchup? Again, the title's not on the line, but you've got champion versus champion at the Survivor Series.
This match has potential to be freaking awesome because you have the Beast Brock Lesnar, who is a special attraction. He is this generation's Andre the Giant, but way more athletic, against AJ Styles, who can do everything, including create lots of motion in the ring. So everything Brock does to him, AJ will make it look 10 times better because he can fly for Brock. I mean, if you look at who Brock's worked in the last few pay-per-views, it's been Roman Reigns, Braun Strowman, Samoa Joe, bigger dudes, okay, Goldberg, guys that can't do as much as AJ does. So just look how, both guys are going to make each other look like rock stars in the ring, and people will, when this pay-per-view is done, more people will be talking about AJ Styles and Brock Lesnar than anything else, including the big main event, the 5-on-5. But AJ can't beat Brock Lesnar because Brock Lesnar is going to be headlining WrestleMania in New Orleans again. It's going to be a great match. It'll be competitive. I don't know if AJ is going to get beat clean. I would like to believe there's going to be some type of shenanigans involved in the match because you have to protect AJ. I don't think beating AJ clean is good business considering he lost clean to Finn Balor at the last pay-per-view and then just beating Jinder Mahal. But talking about Jinder Mahal, everyone says, thank God that experiment's over. Jinder Mahal is going to be wrestling Triple H in India. I think that's a bigger match for Jinder Mahal than being the world champion wrestling AJ Styles in India next month.
I agree 100%, and I don't think that that things are done with Jinder Mahal by any means, and I certainly don't think that they were an experiment by any means. I think that they were done for the right reasons, and Jinder did it very well. He carried his end of the bargain, and I don't think, Dave, I disagree. I don't think that it hurts AJ to lose clean to Brock Lesnar. I think that it actually waters down the finish if they do something timid and petty as to run out another SmackDown guy to spin off and cause the finish so that now AJ has heat to work with the SmackDown guy, all in the effort of protecting AJ. When you set out to book things with that mindset of, well, we got to protect this guy, well, we got to protect that guy, no one really gets over. And no one really gets over, well, then we don't really draw any heat. If we don't really draw any heat, then we don't draw any money. And you need, in a lot of these situations, you need somebody to lose. And being beaten by a guy, like you said, Brock Lesnar, who is this generation's Andre the Giant, how can that hurt you? You faced a champion, you faced a monster, they can make, Brock will do good business and he'll make AJ look like $1 million. AJ will make himself look like $1 billion. He just couldn't climb the mountain. Doesn't hurt it.
Well, we'll see what happens this Sunday night at the Survivor Series. More matches to talk about, including the tag match, Cesaro and Sheamus versus the Usos, and also the women's 5-on-5 eliminations series matchup. We're going to talk about those matches in just a moment after the timeout. But firstly, Al, give us an update on what's going on in your world. Where can we see you again next soon, and what's going on with the Collar and Elbow brand?
Well, I'll be at Icons of Wrestling this coming weekend in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and then for SWF Friday night, and again Saturday night. People can see me there. I just got back from Santiago, Chile, opening and getting the ASWA, Al Snow Wrestling Academy in Chile, off the ground. We're already talking about affiliates in Concepcion and Villa de Mar as well, and did a big promotional tour down there and got started working with the guys, and wrestled and won the international title in Chile.
Well, congratulations.
And, thank you. And Collar and Elbow, we'll be having our Black Friday sale next week. So check out and keep an eye open at collarandelbowbrand.com for all the discounts and the sales for some cool wrestling apparel from Collar and Elbow.
Wait, you're going to be in Pennsylvania this week with Justin LaBar?
Who?
Justin LaBar, yes.
Oh, my gosh. Be careful of that guy.
I know. Be trouble.
Thank you, Al. And David Hero on December 3rd. I'm sorry. December 2nd. December 2nd. Yes. House of Hardcore comes to Waukesha. Tell us about what's going on there.
You know what? It's going to be, it's called Homecoming. It's House of Hardcore, Tommy Dreamer, and Blizzard Brawl We're back at it again. Austin Aries against Joey Mercury. It's the first time Austin Aries has ever wrestled in his hometown of Waukesha, Wisconsin.
What?
Yeah, we're going to have Tommy Dreamer and Abyss. We have Candice Michelle in her final match ever against Victoria. And, there's other great stars, Carlito, MVP, but let's not forget Al Snow and the new GLCW champion, Hornswoggle, and I'll be in their corner against the Spirit Squad.
Kenny?
Yeah, Kenny will be there, yes. I don't think Nikki will be there. I think he has prior commitments. But, yeah, it's gonna
Johnny,
be...
I don't think Johnny won't be there either. It'll be Mikey and Kenny.
I cannot wait to see Al and Hornswoggle team. I mean, the chemistry between those two has got to be interesting. So.
Oh, wait. The aerial attack that we're going to use, myself and Hornswoggle, is going to be incrable.
He's going to be a scud whistle for you, isn't he?
You think that the bombs that were dropped in Japan were anything? They're nothing compared to what's going to happen once Hornswoggle is elevated, achieves a certain amount of atmospheric pressure, and then drops like a 2-ton megaton bomb into the ring. It's just an explosion of meat and wrestler and little person going everywhere.
Folks, tickets and information for that available at houseofhardcore.net. That's Saturday, December 2nd at the Waukesha County Expo Center. Lots of firsts
and
a
hey,
couple
listen,
lasts.
if you can't make it to Waukesha, you can watch the entire show on Twitch. So it should be very interesting.
And tickets available now for House of Hardcore Blizzard Brawl Homecoming. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us here this week on Primetime Live. Looking forward to the Survivor Series and appreciate your insight into the matches. We'll be back with you again next week here for more to look at what actually did happen and to dissect that. So, Al, thank you. Dave, thank you. We're going to take a time out when we come back. More on this special Survivor Series edition of the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime Live.
WrestleMania weekend's biggest party is coming to Bourbon Street. Don't miss an all-inclusive, all-night party Friday, April 6th. Hosted by Kevin Nash and over 20 other wrestling stars. Enjoy unlimited drinks all night long at the Bourbon Cowboy on Bourbon Street. Throw beads from the balcony. Drink and party with your favorite wrestling stars. Hurry, limited quantities available. Purchase tickets now at PWRshow.com. That's PWRshow.com.